So you've gotten your first round interview scheduled for your dream faculty position, and you're looking for tips to help you prepare. Well, in today's video, I'm going to share 7 tips that may help you stand out as a candidate for that ideal faculty position. Stay tuned. Greetings all, I'm Dr. Xeturah Woodley, a retired university professor and former academic vice president. So today I thought I'd take a couple of minutes and share with you some tips that I have for those of you that are going through the interview process. So let's get started with tip number 1. Okay, tip number 1 is do mock interviews before you actually interview. And I think you should do more than one before you do the interview. Now, if your first interview is scheduled to happen on Zoom, then you want to do your mock interviewing via Zoom. Now, I recommend that you gather colleagues, students, and even professors, if possible, to sit in on the interview. It's really important to have a cross-representation from the institution because there'll probably be faculty and staff, possibly, and even students on your interview. So you want to do the test runs in front of as many people as you can. Now, I recommend you do 30-minute sessions and then ask for feedback after the 30-minute interview, and then go again. Make adjustments, listen to the feedback, you'll make adjustments in your performance, and then you'll go back and you'll try again. Now, here's why that's really important. For a lot of new Ph.D. students or early career faculty members, they haven't gone through a lot of interviews. And so it's really good to get some practice and get yourself in the mindset of being in the interview process. So that's why the mock interviews are so important. Sometimes your colleagues or other professors or other students can see things that you can't see, and they can help you improve on the interview. So I always encourage people to do tip number 1, which is hold some mock interview. Okay, tip number 2 is isolate yourself. Now, here's what I mean by that. I mean that on the day that you're having your interview, make sure that nobody else should be in the room with you. And if possible, you shouldn't even hear anybody next door. So what you're doing is you're creating a distraction-free environment by isolating yourself. So if you can't isolate yourself at your home or in your office, then what I'd recommend you do is go to the library on campus and see if they have any rooms available that you can check out, a study room or a private conference room. Let them know you're doing an interview and that you really need some quiet space. The key is finding an environment that is distraction-free where you can have an uninterrupted time for your interview. So tip number 2, you want to isolate yourself, find a quiet, distraction-free, uninterrupted interview space. That's tip 2. And tip 3 is test your technology. So you always want to make sure your computer works. You want to test your microphone. Make sure your microphone's working, the internet's working, the camera is working, because technology fails. It's one of the first assignments I give students in my classes is always write a backup plan for your technology. And so because technology fails, you want to have a backup plan. If your cell phone, for example, is your backup plan, make sure that you test it both the day before and the day of your interview just to make sure that everything's taken care of. Now, for some institutions, what they'll be doing is sending you an email that has a contact person in their IT department or an administrative assistant that can test the information with you. Always make sure that you test that technology. And as you heard, my notifications went off on the phone. This is a good time for me to remind you, turn off your phone during the interview. That's tip 3, test your technology. All right, and tip number 4, this is a good one. No Google searches during the interview. Yep, I've had people actually start doing Google searches on their end as they're in the middle of the interview. Like I would ask them a question and you could see them searching on Google for the answer. I'm not interested in what AI has to say. I really want to know what you have to say. And so always make sure that you are being present, you're making eye contact as best you can with the people that are interviewing you, and please do not search for answers to questions on the internet. Now, it's always good idea to have a notepad and a pen to write down things. Please, no Google searches during the interview. Just be present in the interview, answer the questions as best you can, but don't get distracted by other things happening on the computer, right? No Google searches. That's tip number 4. Oh, tip 5, prepare for common questions. Now, at all interviews, at all levels, they probably have some similar questions to these. I'll give you a couple of common ones that come to mind for me. Tell us why you want to work at this institution. Tell us about how you handle conflict with a student. And what about with a colleague? How do you handle that conflict? Tell us what your research interest is. Tell us about your dissertation. Oh, this one. Why are you the best candidate for the job? So all of those are common questions that come through on interviews. So what you want to do is you want to think through those common kind of questions. What I recommend is that you prepare a brief and concise statement or response for each of those kinds of questions. Now, I'm going to tell you right now, don't overshare in your responses to the questions. Don't share any information in those responses that will put you or your institution at risk. What you want to do is you want to be honest, open, answer the question, but don't overshare in your responses to those questions. And that is tip number 5, prepare for common questions. Be prepared. For tip number 6, you're going to answer the question that was asked. So this goes back to what I was saying in tip number 5. You don't need to overshare and don't answer a different question. So I'll give you an example about what I mean. If I'm asking you a question about your teaching philosophy, but what you've done is prepared a response for a question about research philosophy, if the research philosophy matches with your teaching philosophy, then absolutely give that answer. But if not, if I've asked you about teaching philosophy, I really want to hear about your teaching philosophy, not your research philosophy, okay? So answer the question that was asked. Don't add extra information as filler. This will help keep you from rambling. Okay, let's not ramble. Let's just answer the question that was asked. All right, that's tip number 6. And tip number 7, give examples whenever possible. It's one of the things that I like to tell people to do is look at your research and scholarly activity, teaching, and your service when you're looking for examples that you can give them of an answer. So, for example, if I ask you about how you work with students, then you answer the question about experiences you've had working specifically with students in your discipline, for example, or in your program. And if you were an advisor to a club, that would be a good example that you can bring in to answer a question I may have for you about involvement and working with students, right? What you want to do is you want to pull from research and scholarly activity, teaching, and service as you're pulling together your answers with examples, all right? So always, if possible, give an example at the end of answering a question. That's tip number 7. And that is it for today's video. Now, remember, preparation and practice are crucial when interviewing for faculty positions. By following these tips and strategies, you can increase your chances of being a standout candidate and landing your dream job. Now, if you have questions about anything I've covered in this video, please feel free to leave your questions and comments below. And also, if you have tips for early career faculty members that are interviewing for positions, go ahead and feel free to leave those in the comments as well. Thanks so much for watching and have a terrific day. Hey, thanks so much for watching today's video. I appreciate you engaging with the content here on the Womanist Scholar. Now, if you haven't already done so, please feel free to click the like button and also think about subscribing. That way you'll be notified whenever another video like this one comes out. Thanks so much for watching and have a terrific day.